because the Y2K here, you guys can see that right now, there are like a lot of like Indian born like engineers in America. And we know that right now we have like CEO of Google or Alphabet, the CEO of like Microsoft, and the CEO of Adobe. They are born in India. So really, really important like milestone. Something that has never happened in the history of America.
We know that right now,
I mean, like, you know,
we have like
the CEO of very important, very large companies
the CEO of like
held
Microsoft
by the foreigners.
CEO of
In this case, by the Indian like engineers
in India.
So what I'm trying like to get at here is that
important
sometimes
like milestone.
we think about
Something
like a crisis.
that has never happened.
Sometimes we think about a problem,
right now. I mean, like,
but the crisis and the problem can turn into opportunities. So the topic here, what I want to talk about is how do we turn the crisis that we are going through to be like an opportunity here that we can take advantage of, so we can make the most out of the crisis. A lot of people do not like problems. We don't like problems. Nobody likes problems. But in the bigger scale, in the bigger picture, we see that crisis, if we can like, you know, deal with it like properly, if we have like the right attitude, if we have the right mindset, like problems can turn into opportunities and great opportunities. Now, we're going to talk about the virus right here. Okay. Give me a second, guys. I don't know, for some reason, like the my screen, I mean like, Mbak Safitri, ini yang waiting roomnya bisa di-enabled nggak ya? Karena ini pop-up terus di saya, yang ada orang yang mau masuk.
Iya, Bro.
Tolong di ini aja ya, di disabled.
Iya.
Karena ini saya mau nggak bisa apa tuh?
Ya. Nanti PowerPoint-nya bisa di slideshow, Prof.
Kenapa?
PowerPoint-nya bisa di slideshow saja.
Oh, ini belum kelihatan ya slideshow-nya?
Belum.
Oh, sorry. Saya nggak tahu. Oke. Sebentar. Oke. Ya. Jadi kita mulai dari awal saja ya. Ini sorry about it. So this is the picture from the Second World War, and we are seeing here there's a lot of like U.S. young men who went overseas war. The thing here, because like the war, like the women in America, they got to do the job of men, and they did that like successfully. And because of that, now we are seeing like, you know, a lot of like movement, like woman right, and about like the equality, and things are doing great. Another thing is about the Y2K, and here's like the picture. A lot of people worried about the Y2K. They worried about the problem that could like, you know, put like people out of work. But because of this, like I said before, like now we are seeing a lot of like Indian born like engineers. In fact, like there are 3 companies, huge companies, Google, Microsoft and Adobe. The CEOs, they are born in India. Now what should we do about the coronavirus? I know that when we talk about coronavirus, a lot of people got scared. A lot of people worry about it. They say, well, what should we do with the coronavirus? And from my school, my experience, I mean, I went to Indonesia in March, and when I came back here to America, I realized that things are very different. In fact, that we had like to do the remaining of the semester through online class. And it was pretty confusing. I mean, like to some people, it's pretty confusing. Some students complain about it. They say, well, we don't like the online. Some people, oh, we like the online, but there are like so many uncertainties, all right? But the coronavirus, a lot of people ask the question, very important question, what should we do to prepare for the future? What's going to happen to the future of higher education and also the career, right? Now, I know that a lot of you use like Zoom application a lot. I know that some of you use the Zoom very extensively, and some people, they have like Zoom meetings from maybe like 8 in the morning until like 5, or maybe even like 8 in the evening, and that's really frustrating. So here you can see that a lot of people are smiling, they're happy. The first time that we got into the coronavirus lockdown period, people are so happy when they were able to connect with each other, right? But after some time, this is what's going to happen. No more Zoom meetings, because everyone is so tired, is so fed up with the Zoom meetings. So I think this is really interesting, that the future of higher education, a lot of people say, oh, online learning is going to be huge, right? It's going to be great. But I'm not really sure about it. I'm not really sure if the higher education is going to be virtual, is going to be totally tech driven, because we like it or not, a lot of people still like the online class, the face-to-face class better than the online class. Jadi kalau saya lihat di kelas saya, ketika saya mengadakan kelas online dengan kelas yang langsung, itu bagi saya sangat mudah untuk memancing minat dari murid-murid saya kalau saya berhadapan langsung dengan mereka. Dan juga memang ada murid-murid saya juga yang berkata bahwa pengajaran dalam konteks kelas itu jauh lebih engaging karena ada interaksi antara si pengajar dengan murid-murid yang diajar. Tapi kalau misalnya kita pakai Zoom, apalagi kalau misalnya kita tidak share video, itu mungkin sekali kita sebenarnya tidak memperhatikan. Saya ingat waktu itu ada satu waktu saya rapat meeting di sekolah, tapi ini sudah lockdown. Jadi waktu itu saya agak sakit. Karena saya agak sakit, jadi saya waktu itu tidak pakai video. Tidak pakai video, akhirnya yang terjadi itu saya mohon maaf ketiduran. Jadi saya ketiduran, saya nggak pakai video juga, si mikrofonnya di mute. Dan waktu itu ya saya hampir mungkin ketiduran sekitar 20 menit kali ya. Dari rapat 2 jam itu saya ketiduran 20 menit. Nah tapi tidak ada orang yang tahu bahwa saya ketiduran. Nah cuman ya poin saya adalah kadang-kadang pengajaran secara online ini memang sangat riskan. Karena teknologinya pun juga belum terlalu matang. Dan kita juga melihat saat ini masih banyak seperti murid-murid saya yang datang dari kota Chicago, itu banyak yang berasal dari keluarga yang miskin. Jadi mereka datang ke kampus itu berkat bantuan pemerintah. Jadi ketika mereka harus pulang ke rumah masing-masing, mereka tidak semua mempunyai peralatan teknologi yang memadai. Ada yang tidak punya komputer yang bagus, ada yang wifi-nya lemot gitu ya. Ada juga yang fasilitasnya tidak memadai. Tapi intinya itu proses pengajaran ini tidak berlangsung dengan baik. Nah, jadi apa yang kita bisa harapkan dari higher education? Nah, ada 5 hal. Ada 5 hal yang penting yang saya rasa ini akan sangat berhubungan dengan adik-adik di sekolah Pradita Dirgantara. Yang pertama adalah nomor satu itu akan banyak kesempatan untuk Anda untuk sekolah karena biaya itu akan lebih murah di masa yang akan datang. Jadi saat ini saya kebetulan saya juga menjadi fakulti senat dosen di universitas. Jadi kami sudah membicarakan mengenai masalah tahun ajaran baru. Jadi waktu saya tanya sama mereka, apa yang akan kita lakukan di tahun ajaran baru? Apakah kita akan langsung mengadakan kelas seperti biasa, atau kita akan mengadakan pengajaran secara online? Nah, kalau pengajaran secara online, ini biayanya jauh lebih murah. Kalau biaya langsung untuk kita kelas, itu biasanya sekitar 75% sampai 100% lebih mahal. Nah, jadi dengan adanya krisis ini, ada kemungkinan bahwa kita akan melihat kesempatan pendidikan yang jauh lebih murah. Dan saat ini juga saya pernah bicara dengan beberapa teman, kolega, dari berbagai universitas di Amerika yang saat ini tuh sekolah mereka karena ini sedang bersaing, mereka akan membuka kesempatan online class. Dan ini bisa diikuti oleh siapa saja, dan ini mereka akan mendapatkan diploma nantinya. Nah, jadi ini merupakan satu kesempatan yang luar biasa. Mungkin kalau dulu ya, adik-adik, waktu saya tahun 99 ke Amerika, waktu itu semuanya kan serba mahal, apalagi waktu itu baru selesai Krismon Asia tahun 98. Jadi semuanya mahal. Terus biaya hidup mahal, makan, terus juga uang sekolah. Saya masih ingat waktu itu biaya yang paling mahal itu adalah uang sekolah, dan yang kedua itu adalah biaya hidup. Itu yang paling mahal. Nah, tapi dengan kondisi sekarang, dengan adanya coronavirus ini, saya melihat bahwa kesempatan untuk Anda semua, ini untuk adik-adik ini akan jauh lebih banyak. Karena Anda tidak harus menghadiri kampus, Anda masih tetap bisa melanjutkan sekolah di tempat kita, misalnya di Jogja, atau di Solo, atau di Boyolali. Anda tidak usah pergi ke Amerika, tapi Anda bisa mendapatkan ijazah atau kesempatan untuk berinteraksi dengan alumni sekolah. Nah, itu yang pertama. Yang kedua itu adalah kita akan menghadapi satu masa di mana Anda itu akan bisa mendapatkan spesialisasi. Ya. Nah, jadi yang jadi masalah saat ini dalam dunia pendidikan, khususnya dalam dunia pendidikan tinggi, itu adalah semuanya itu kayak generik. Semuanya generik karena itu yang paling murah. Bahkan kalau di sini untuk freshman atau sophomore, mahasiswa tingkat 1 atau 2, itu biasanya mahasiswa itu tidak diajar oleh profesor. Mereka biasanya diajar oleh asisten. Diajar oleh asisten karena memang biaya itu mahal. Tapi nanti saya melihat bahwa akan ada satu masa di mana kita itu akan banyak spesialisasi, dan kita bisa belajar apa yang kita mau. Dan kita bisa mengkombinasi ini, bisa pick and choose ya, bisa mix and match. Jadi apa yang kita senang, mau misalnya saya senang robotik, terus saya mau juga belajar ekonomi, itu saya bisa gabungkan. Tapi kalau saat ini masih sulit. Masih sulit, dan saya rasa juga seperti misalnya di Indonesia, kalau saya tidak salah, ini kan untuk pindah jurusan itu kalau dulu itu sangat sulit. Dan kalaupun itu bisa dilakukan, itu kita harus mulai lagi dari nol. Harus mulai dari nol, ambil lagi kelasnya satu-satu, dan itu makan waktu lama sekali. Nah, tapi saya kemarin mendengar video di YouTube mengenai visinya Pak Nadiem. Dan Pak Nadiem melihat adanya kebutuhan untuk mahasiswa itu untuk bisa mengambil kuliah di jurusan yang berbeda-beda. Nah, saya melihat bahwa ini akan menjadi satu tren. Ini akan menjadi satu tren berikutnya, di mana kita itu akan punya kesempatan untuk memperdalam bidang yang kita suka. Ya, jadi kalau ada mahasiswa yang masuk jurusan ekonomi, tapi dia juga misalnya punya minat atau keterampilan di bidang desain grafis, itu dia tidak usah harus mengulang dari awal. Jadi dia tetap bisa meneruskan misalnya bisnis, mata kuliah bisnis. Mungkin dia masuk ke mata kuliah bisnis karena apa ya? Karena disuruh oleh orang tua. Nah, jadi dia tidak usah mengulang dari awal, tapi dia bisa tinggal melanjutkan apa yang dia suka. Nah, tapi hal yang negatif di sini adalah masalah, hal yang negatif di sini adalah masalah interaksi antara manusia itu yang akan makin terbatas. Karena kita nanti cara kerjanya online, ini akan menjadi masalah. Karena orang dengan orang itu tidak terbiasa untuk berinteraksi. Nah, ini juga yang menjadi satu satu pemikiran, satu concern saya mengenai masalah interaksi antara manusia ya. Misalnya kayak sekarang dengan adanya kemajuan teknologi, hampir semua orang itu main HP ya. Jadi kalau saya lihat anak-anak zaman sekarang, mahasiswa saya khususnya misalnya, ketika mereka datang ke kelas itu kadang-kadang terdistraksi karena terlalu banyak hal yang mereka kerjakan gitu loh. Jadi bagi saya pun juga sulit. Dan ketika misalnya mereka kirim email ke saya, kadang-kadang cara kirim emailnya itu cenderung nggak sopan gitu. Jadi mereka pun juga nggak tahu bagaimana cara berkomunikasi dengan baik. Nah, saya melihat bahwa ini menjadi masalah. Karena seberapa pintarnya Anda, adik-adik, Anda bisa jago matematika, jago fisika, jago kimia, jago science, apapun yang Anda jago, kalau Anda tidak bisa punya kemampuan sosial yang baik, kalau Anda tidak bisa berkomunikasi dengan baik, kalau Anda tidak bisa menyampaikan apa yang ada dalam pikiran Anda akan kesulitan. Kalau Anda jago dalam ilmu, tapi Anda tidak bisa meyakinkan orang ketika Anda diwawancara, saya rasa akan sangat sulit untuk Anda mendapatkan pekerjaan. Gitu. Nah, itu yang akan menjadi tantangan bagi kita. Nah, yang keempat, ini Anda akan menghadapi satu masa yang sangat kompetitif. Jadi kalau kita lihat di zaman dulu itu kesempatan itu orang bisa sekolah itu nggak banyak. Orang nggak banyak yang bisa punya kesempatan sekolah. Tapi sekarang kita bisa lihat begitu banyak orang-orang bisa sekolah. Kita bisa lihat sekarang pemerintah Indonesia mengeluarkan dana pendidikan LPDP. Dan itu bisa memberikan kesempatan begitu banyak orang bisa mendapatkan pendidikan yang baik. Itu artinya apa buat Anda? Itu artinya Anda akan bersaing dengan lebih banyak orang lagi. Nah, jadi ada kemudahan bahwa Anda bisa belajar ilmu yang Anda senangi, tapi juga di sisi negatifnya, Anda akan mempunyai persaingan yang jauh lebih ketat. Makanya kalau kita lihat, ini lucu. Menurut saya ada satu fenomena di Indonesia dan juga di negara-negara, di semua negara lah saya rasa ya. Orang zaman dulu itu bisa punya rumah dengan tidak terlalu sulit gitu. Orang zaman dulu. Tapi sekarang sudah kuliah di sekolah yang hebat, sudah bisa kerja, tapi sekarang makin sedikit anak muda yang bisa punya rumah tanpa dibantu oleh orang tua ya. Kenapa? Karena memang persaingan itu begitu ketat, sangat ketat. Misalnya contoh aja deh, zaman dulu banyak orang yang buka usaha makanan ya. Bisa jalan nggak? Oh banyak, bahkan yang berhasil ya, yang punya bisnis kuliner yang legendaris. Tapi Anda sekarang coba, semua orang yang bisa masak itu akan menawarkan makanannya di sosial media. Artinya apa? Semua orang memasukkan produk andalan mereka misalnya di Tokopedia atau misalnya di GoFood atau dimanapun lah platformnya. Artinya apa? Anda semakin sulit untuk bersaing. Nah, itu yang menjadi dampak yang not very positive like effect of this the increased like competition. Yang kelima adalah more homogenized human resource. Tapi saya nggak akan bahas terlalu dalam. Tapi ini akan menjadi satu masalah bagi HR development dan juga untuk pengembangan sumber daya di Indonesia. Nah, ini ada satu contoh saja, saya tidak akan lama di sini. Ini adalah salah satu sharing dari seorang teman saya. Bagaimana setelah pandemi ini berakhir, nanti kita akan melihat playbook untuk CIO. CIO di sini adalah Chief of Information Officer. Jadi kita bisa lihat kalau X ini, yang namanya X ini adalah tantangan. Nah, kalau yang O itu adalah strategi. Jadi misalnya kalau X ya, suddenly sekarang remote, artinya apa? Yang tadinya kerja, bisa ketemu sama orang, bisa ngobrol, bisa tukar pikiran, sekarang suddenly nggak bisa gitu loh. Suddenly kita mau rapat aja susah gitu loh. Orang kita mau ajak rapat teman kerja kita, dia ada rapat lagi sama yang lain. Nah, ini akan menjadi sulit. Terus ada new normal. Nah, ini yang diungkapkan oleh Pak Jokowi, bahwa kita akan punya kondisi itu new normal. Bagaimana kita menghadapi itu? Kalau kita travel, sedangkan kita takut, misalnya seperti saya terakhir waktu pulang ke Indonesia itu lewat Hong Kong. Waktu lewat Hong Kong, itu saya kayak apa ya, namanya kayak saya tuh udah parno, yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Paranoid gitu loh. Waduh, saya takut. Gimana saya kalau saya sampai sakit? Saya itu kayaknya ya tiap jam, saya nggak pegang apa-apa. Saya bahkan waktu itu puasa. Dari perjalanan dari Chicago ke Hong Kong itu 14 jam, itu saya nggak makan. Saya cuma minum aja. Minum pun juga saya bawa botol sendiri gitu loh. Saya nggak mau pegang apa-apa. Terus tiap jam itu saya cuci tangan. Jadi saya bawa hand sanitizer waktu itu. Artinya apa? Artinya new normal nanti itu akan membuat orang itu takut untuk bepergian. Misalnya kita ya, kalau misalnya pandemi ini berakhir di bulan Agustus atau Juli ya, saya tidak yakin kalau orang nanti bakal begitu selesai itu langsung mau bepergian sama seperti dulu. Mungkin ada orang-orang, apalagi kalau orang yang sudah punya ada umur atau ada kondisi kesehatan, mereka akan mikir berapa kali gitu loh. Apa saya mending lebih baik pergi ke Paris, atau apa saya lebih baik meeting ke Hong Kong kalau semua meeting ini sudah pernah dilakukan secara online. Nah, jadi ini akan menjadi satu dinamika yang berbeda, ya. Jadi itu juga akan sangat mempengaruhi Anda semua. Nah, ini adalah satu tulisan di dalam karakter di dalam bahasa Cina. Ini artinya kalau dibaca keseluruhan itu adalah krisis, ya. Tapi si tulisan krisis ini itu kalau dibagi dua, itu yang kiri itu adalah bahaya. Tapi yang di sebelah kanan itu adalah kesempatan. Jadi artinya ini mengatakan bahwa krisis itu kalau kita lihat itu ada dua sisi. Di satu sisi itu adalah bahaya, sesuatu yang menakutkan. Tapi di sisi yang lain, krisis ini bisa menjadi sesuatu kesempatan. Nah, ini yang akan menjadi tantangan buat Anda semua. Bagaimana kita menyikapi krisis ini? Apakah kita melihatnya sebagai sesuatu yang menakutkan, sesuatu yang berbahaya, atau kita melihatnya sebagai sesuatu yang bisa dijadikan sebagai satu batu loncatan dan kesempatan untuk kita memperbaiki diri dan semakin kompetitif.
Mohon maaf, saya sela sebentar. Bisa tolong switch lagi ke bahasa Inggris, Prof? Supaya teman-teman juga bisa belajar bahasa Inggris.
Okay.
Sambil belajar, ya.
Sure, no problem. I'll switch back. Yeah. So here's there's like a report that I read from the Ivy League. If you guys know about the Ivy League system, Ivy League is just a set of like schools in the Northeast. A lot of people think that Ivy League is a set of like prestigious schools, which is correct, but it's not 100% correct, because Stanford technically is not an Ivy League school. Stanford is not. But Stanford, a lot of people think that Stanford is Ivy League. But anyway, so there are like 9 Ivy League schools. Here, I think Cornell is not included, but it should be in. Oh, it's right here. I don't know which one is not, but there should be 9. Anyway, they just released a new report. So the Ivy League schools, they just released a new report. And I think the report is initiated by Harvard. So they say that they are changing the admission standard, the student admission standard. In the past, like all like Ivy League schools, they only accept about like 4% of the applicants, but it's no longer the case. I mean, like the rigor of like the admission standard is still like really, really high. But what's changing is the all the schools, and also like accompanied by like a lot more like schools, they say, hey, we want to emphasize not only on the academic like performance, that's important for you, but we also want to make sure that your character also important. So what does it mean? What does it mean to you? Well, so what it means, if your grades are really good now, it's good. But it is not a guarantee that you can get accepted to top schools. And that is the trend that we are seeing right now, that schools are starting like to emphasize also on the soft skills, on the character, on the emotional quotient. Okay. And I think this is really important. And I will share like the full report, the PDF with UNS. And if you're interested like in reading it, you are welcome to download it and read it, at your leisure. But I just want to be brief here, but there are 3 specific like recommendations. Number 1, they want to promote like more meaningful contributions to other people, community service, and engagement with the public good. And what does it mean? So what you do around yourself every day is important. That matters. That matters a lot to you, and also like to the admission officers. So they will look at like your applications like very carefully, and they will say, hey, this guy is good, but he is not socially active. He is awkward. In fact, he's awkward. Maybe we'll put him like, in the waiting list, or maybe that we'll just reject him like outright. And that's possible. But there's also like a possibility right now that somebody is not great academically, but they have like great like community service. They are contributing like, to the society, and that's great. And in fact, like my niece is currently like studying at is currently studying at Dartmouth. And that's also like one of the Ivy League school. And the reason that she got accepted, like the main reason, is because like she was very active in the debate and speech competition. And the Dartmouth said, well, you know what? That's great. I mean, like we like that. We like the candidates, the well-rounded candidates, and we are welcoming them because they can like enrich the diversity of the school, and also the enrich the quality of the student body. And the number 2, the second recommendation that they have is to assess the ethical engagement. And one of the thing here is, this is something much bigger than ourselves. This is about the values, about, again, the character, about community contributions across race, culture, and class. America, I mean, is very proud of welcoming people like from like various like backgrounds, from various like religions, from various like races, from various like social economic like backgrounds. And that is something that the schools in America is valuing and treasuring like so much. So I think that's also an opportunity for you guys, because you get like to showcase your contribution. Let's say that you are good at being like a Boy Scout, Pramuka. You can say, hey, I'm a great Pramuka. I mean, like, when I was like in middle school, or when I was like in elementary school, I was like, Komandan di Pramuka. I don't even know what the Komandan Pramuka means, or like, translates in English. But anyway, you got my point. So they value about your contribution, the community contribution, And if you can highlight about the things about the race, culture, class, and how you can enrich the diversity of the student body, more power to you. All right. And the last one is about redefine the achievements in ways that both level the playing field for economically diverse students and reduce the excessive achievement pressure. All right. Now, guys, I know that I have talked a lot. I want to show you like YouTube video. This is a project for like high school students in Bandung. So we did this, and I hope that the students, the Pradita Dirgantara students, someday can do something like this. And I would be interested in talking to the para pengurus dari SMA Pradita, mungkin dengan Ibu Nani atau staf yang lain, bagaimana si project ini bisa membantu anak-anak siswa untuk belajar mengembangkan hal-hal yang di luar kelas. Kita nonton bersama ya. Ini adalah kunjungan ke Desa Cihonje di Jawa Tengah waktu itu. Challenge, draw me in, 'cause I want more.
I think the voice is not that clear, Prof.
Yeah, so that is like a project that we did with the high school students in Bandung, and we helped them how to like do like community service, how to engage community, how to help the a village to develop their like business potential, like to help the elementary school students, like to talk about like finance, about like business. And that's how like we develop stuff outside the classroom, because like, you know, education in the classroom is important, but unless you can do it outside the setting, it's kind of useless, because at the end of the day, after like you graduate like from your university or like from high school, you have to work in the marketplace, in the real world. And if you don't know how to do it, then it's hard. The second video that I want to show you here is about like a lady. Her name is Ibu Ririn. Ibu Ririn tinggal di Kota Malang, dan dulu itu Bu Ririn punya masalah utang. So she has a lot of debt. But we are helping like people like Ibu Ririn, like to change their life, to manage their money better, so they can like, you know, have like a better life. And I want you like to watch the video. Enjoy.
Maaf Prof, belum keluar di screen videonya.
Kenapa belum keluar?
Belum muncul.
Oh, sebentar.
And can you turn up the volume?
Sure.
Because like previous video, the voice is not that clear.
Okay, let me try again. Host. Oh, ini kayaknya Mbak Savitri nge-disable screen sharing saya.
Oh?
Ini host disabled participant like screen sharing. Coba sebentar. Saya coba lagi ya. Nah, bisa. Oke. Sebentar, saya mulai lagi. Jadi ini Bu Ririn ya, di Malang.
Saya bekerja di HUD dan selain bekerja di HUD, saya rumah tangga.
Suaranya bisa di-share juga, Prof?
Apanya?
Suaranya bisa tolong di-share juga?
Oh, wow, sebentar.
Ada pilihannya di-share.
Oke. Sharing. Oh, oke, sorry. Sebentar. Ya. Oke, saya mulai lagi ya. Sorry.
Perkenalkan, nama saya Ririn Lestari. Saya berasal dari Kota Malang, tinggal di Kampung Kasin. Saya bekerja di HUD dan selain bekerja di HUD, saya mengurus rumah tangga, juga menjaga toko kecil-kecilan di rumah. Kebetulan saya sering dibantu sharing sama Mbak Ida sama Mbak Lila tentang keuangan. Nah, waktu saya sharing sama Mbak Ida sama Mbak Lila, dikenalkan beruang cerdas itu. Jadi saya baca dulu buku-bukunya beruang cerdas. Oh, saya kok tertarik gitu loh. Terus saya semakin senang gitu loh. akhirnya saya coba kan. Jadi memang dulu sebelum saya kenal sama Beruang Cerdas itu saya juga tulis pengeluaran saya, terus hasil apa gitu saya tulis. Nah ini kok kebetulan yang dulu saya kerjakan itu kok ada panduannya gitu loh. Cuma ini mungkin lebih luas. Ada investasi, ada ini, ada harus nabung, gini gitu kan. Ya akhirnya saya pelajari itu. Waktu saya masuk ke HUD, hutang saya hutang saya banyak sekali, dan saya punya hutang di bank. Saya nggak bisa bayar, dan Mbak Ida itu kasih saya kata-kata yang bikin saya itu sampai sekarang saya pegang. Memutus tali rantai hutang tanpa berhutang. Jadi harus diputus hutang itu. Meskipun tabungan itu cuma sedikit, tapi setidaknya saya ada tabungan gitu loh. Jadi hutang yang berkurang itu kan biasanya saya bayar untuk hutang ini lunas, saya alihkan untuk ke tabungan. Gitu. Ya meskipun tidak banyak, tapi kalau pas butuh kan seneng, jadi nggak sampai hutang lagi. Gitu. Pokoknya prinsip saya yang saya pegang dari Mbak Ida, membayar hutang tanpa berhutang itu. Harapan kedepannya supaya saya sih pinginnya hutang saya yang satu itu selesai. Terus saya ingin lebih ini toko ini lebih maju, terus adminnya itu lebih baik gitu. Sekarang kan masih 75% adminnya gitu.
Jadi di sini kita bisa lihat bagaimana proyek yang dilakukan untuk pemberdayaan masyarakat ekonomi itu bisa dilakukan dengan melibatkan para orang-orang, anak-anak muda yang memang punya jiwa untuk berbagi, untuk sharing. Nah, so that's the idea that I have, and I want to somehow to involve a lot of college students, and I am thankful because in the past in 2015 saya juga sempat bekerja sama dengan beberapa 24 atau 25 mahasiswa UNS Fakultas Ekonomi Bisnis. Itu waktu itu difasilitasi oleh Pak Wisnu, Pak Agung, dan Pak Irwan. Nah, jadi anak-anak SMA anak-anak kuliah ini mereka pergi ke desa dan mereka belajar untuk melatih penduduk di desa dan mereka mengembangkan potensi yang ada. Dan itu yang saya rasa yang tadi sebagai sebagai satu cara untuk kita itu bisa untuk kita bisa membuat proses pembelajaran ini makin berkembang di luar kelas. Because I really think that you guys cannot just do great in the classroom, but you also have to develop yourself in such a way that you also excel outside the classroom. You are able to interact with other human beings. You're able to communicate clearly. You are able to do things that really is much bigger beyond just making money. And I think you agree with me that a lot of young people now, they care less about money, but they care a lot more about finding a passion, finding the life purpose, and that is what you strive to do. Okay, I'm sorry for the time, it's too long. I will provide. If you have questions, I would welcome the questions. I don't know if you guys gonna send me the questions in the chat room or what. Let me know. I'll be glad. Or
I have the questions, Prof.
I can
have
also,
the questions from the participants, and I will share that to you after Ruth's sessions.
yeah, okay, sure. That would be fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Chandra. But before going to the next presentations, I would like to invite Ibu Poppy and also Professor Warsito. So Ibu Poppy is the Education and Culture Attaché in Indonesian Embassy in Washington, D.C. And Professor Warsito is the Education and Culture Attaché in Indonesian Embassy in Paris to respond to Professor Chandra's experience and insights. And probably you can share how you see this experience in your perspective, and probably in Paris and also in Washington, D.C.
Halo,
Halo?
udah bisa connect?
Ya, connect.
Oh,
Ya. Yes, Bu
sebentar.
Poppy, please.
Ininya sudah muncul ya, sebentar ininya. Ya.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
good.
good morning everyone. And to Ibu Nani, it is our pleasure to meet you again. She is one of my best role model who always enthusiastic in managing all the activities for developing the High School of Pradita Dirgantara. So congratulations for hosting this event. This is a very interesting topic since we are coping with the coronavirus pandemic globally, and also it is a challenge for Indonesia, particularly for the high school in Indonesia, how to cope and facing the new order. So based on Professor Chandra presentation, the topic is quite challenging about higher education and also about element, characteristic, and also challenges. So I would like to share about the challenge that might be faced by most of Indonesian school in Indonesia and also in other part of the world. So firstly, it's about the human capital. So human capital is really important. How we should prepare all the teachers, the management of the school in facing the situation at the moment. We really rely on the technology such as using Zoom, Webex, and Skype and other application for communicating, engaging with other stakeholders, particularly for delivering the material to the student, and also how we engage with other stakeholders in developing the institution. So the quality of education, the quality of human resource management is really important. How we prepare our teachers in coping with the reality, the shortage of the infrastructure that's available in Indonesia, and also how we could prepare the teachers in also coping with the material. So the material the content of the material to be delivered to the student also is part of the challenge. So human capital development is not only talking about the capacity, the capability, the competence, or the ability, and also the skills. Now, based on the research, there are 10 technological skills are required by someone who are dealing now with education, particularly in higher education and also in high school, such as the ability to use many applications. For instance, in business, many websites now using chatbot. So chatbot is a kind of robot when we want to ask the question to the company, and then the company provides the chatbot in their website, and then we can just ask question, and then the robot will answer the question. So it is a challenge for the school also, maybe in the future or maybe now, providing such kind of facility like chatbot, and then the ability to use other software like Python, artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc. So talking about human capital is really important now, how we have to map the capability and competency of the people, particularly in educational industry, in facing those challenges. And then second issue that really important to face with the new order is about not only about human capital, but how we use the wisely in growing the institution. In Indonesia, under Ministry of Education and Culture, we face the reality that not all Indonesians have access to internet. So that's why the Ministry of Education and Culture in Indonesia now develop the program using TV. So using TV, yeah, and then the program are integrated with the TV since the national TVRI, the TVRI, the Republic of Indonesia, one of the widest distribution in Indonesia. So using TV to distribute the material to the student in Indonesia, so all the student who don't have access to internet could engage with the education. How about in the US? In the US, of course, nearly 99% people have access to the internet, and some people also they have maybe more than two numbers, yeah, to have access to the internet. Compared to Indonesia, in part of the remote area, it's very difficult to get access to good or better internet connection. So the third challenge to higher education, the first is about human capital, and then the second is about technology, and then the third is how we face the threat of the shortage of the resources. What kind of the shortage resources? We now are in the trade conflict between developed countries like the US and China. We are facing like lack of health, the shortage in alat kesehatan, ya, the health equipment like face masks, and also the rapid test for testing the existence of COVID in someone's body. This is also part of the issue that need to be tackled by the institution. So how we prepare our students to face this kind of reality. So I think this is my comment about the issue that delivered by Professor Chandra, and we need to elaborate more about how we prepare our students, ourselves, the teachers, also the management, in facing the new order in COVID pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ibu Poppy. So let's move to Professor Warsito.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. So, hello.
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Especially Ibu Nani, kemudian Pak Kasau, Prof. Jamal, dan seluruh para peserta, especially for the keynote speaker, Prof. Chandra, and then Prof. Ruth from Limoges University from French. It's my great honor for me to join this special event about the new normal after COVID-19 pandemic. So I would like just to give the 2 points about this new normal. Especially, I 100% agree with the Prof. Chandra that the important thing after the COVID-19 pandemic is how we can develop our our student characters in the future. I mean that period after the COVID-19. I have two points actually. The first is that actually in the competence for our students, we have in Indonesia generally we have 3 points important. cognitive, affective, and then skill. So in the point of the characters, this here in French now became the principal discussion. How actually we can develop our students in the future new normal after COVID-19, how we can actually evaluate our student characters, because it's very quite difficult to, now the characters is the point central of our problem. I actually agree with the Prof. Chandra. So I move in the second point. If we know that about the evolution of the how actually knows of our student competence, because of now the system based on the ICT base. So actually we should have the special method of the evolution, because now we can find all of the problem in the school and then the living. Now we can find this problem in in online. So actually all of the teachers, they should have the capacity of the very high capacity, so we can develop like the study case problem. It's not just for the evaluation of our student. Now we don't need just one special thing subject. They should the integrated problem in our environment. It's not just about mathematics or just about the physics, chemistry. No, it will be the integrated science. So that our Minister in Education and Culture, now we develop two subjects, the principal subject, literacy and numerical base. Actually, now we change our evaluation system. It's not just for the one subject. We should have two. The two specialists. First in the numerical. Mathematical plate, and then the second is the literacy. How the student understand of the integrated problem. So as you read now how our minister, the Education and Culture, give the system for the evaluation. It's just there is two subject important, literacy and then numerical problem. It's just like the test for the evaluation for the student who will join the university in Indonesia. Now there is no the test for the the subject, special subject. The scientific and engineering subject. No, there is no that. And then also for the social subject. But it's for the evaluation. It's just for the how the student have that they have the capacity for to develop one problem, and by based on the many subject. So that's this is my opinion. There I have I give two point. First about the characters, and then the second is the evaluation model for our student. So this my important point, that actually I give this subject for many conference before. Like yesterday, I give the seminars in Indonesia. I also give this 2 point important for next new normal after the COVID-19. So it's my thanks very much, and this is my remark for Prof. Chandra and the other participants. Thank you very much. I think it's enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Warsito. And thank you for Ibu Poppy also for the for responding the presentations and also share the experience. And now I would like to welcome the second speaker of today's, Dr. Ruth Taneng. Floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. So first, I'd like to say hi to all of you guys. Professor Jamal, Wiwoho Rector of Universitas Sevelas Marit, Mrs. Nani Hadi Chajanto, Chairperson of the Dharma Pertiwi Foundation, General Fajar Prasetyo, Chief of Staff of the Indonesia Air Force, distinguished university and high school officials, fellow speaker Dr. Kandra Chayadi, Professor Rafaida, Professor Warsito, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Irwan Trinogroho for inviting me to speak in this webinar to tackle the new normal, what will the future look like, particularly in higher education. I would like also to congratulate all of you for this initiative, which is a collaboration between Universitas Sebelas Marit and Pradipta Dirgantara Senior High School. I think that this is an important avenue to exchange information, perspectives, and ideas, especially as uncertainties pile up because of the pandemic. So I'm going to share to you my screen. So before we start, okay, I'd like to initiate a poll or a survey, okay? So to create this survey, actually I used WooClap.
Sorry to disturb you. Can you share the slideshow?
Sorry, it's not
Yeah, it's better, I think. Yes,
okay.
it's good. Thank you.
Okay, so how can I minimize this, because I want to I want to have access to other file to another file. Sorry, because I think I'm losing a bit of control of sorry.
Yeah, if it's too difficult for you, then just okay.
Yes, it's sorry. Can you how can I minimize the screen for this one? Sorry. So let me see first. Okay. So first, in order to participate to this poll, okay, could you please visit this website, www.wooclap.com and then /UNS poll, okay? So the question I asked here is, how many hours in a day do you spend studying during the COVID-19 lockdown? So, okay, so I'm getting some results. So there are 8 already who participated. So I'm going just to share with you the results. Okay. So okay, so it varies every time. Let's say 50% are saying they actually study 4 to 5 hours during COVID-19 lockdown. Well, a sizable proportion of students actually study about 4 hours. Okay, at least 4 hours, which is, I think, encouraging. Okay, because I think that for some it's substantially less. Okay, so this is, for example, an important learning tool, which of course teachers can also use in order to ask students, for example, while having interaction in order to elicit interaction from students during lectures. Let's say in order to check whether they are really understanding the lessons, or in order for students as well to give their points of view, or if they're having difficulties, to increase actually engagement from students. Okay, so we can continue with that one later on. Okay, in order to see the final results, I'm going to continue with my presentation. Okay, so my presentation is a bit more technical compared to that of Professor Chandra. I'm going to discuss a bit more about the challenges, which is a good complement because it discussed more about opportunities a while ago. And I'm also going to reiterate some certain points that Professor Rafaida talked about, especially in terms of the challenges of distance learning strategies, especially also from the point of view of educators and in terms of technological preparedness. So, okay. So first and foremost, as we know, COVID-19 pandemic is a health crisis. Okay, it had negative consequences that affected all economies across the world. So the lockdown actually resulted in negative shocks on consumption and income, and has increased already unemployment. So the ILO, or the International Labor Organization, estimates actually that nearly half of the global workforce is at risk of losing their livelihood. And the IMF actually expects a recession that could be worse than what happened during the global financial crisis in 2008 and 2009. So in Europe, we are bracing up for a recession or a downturn, which at the moment is being delayed as governments try to provide support to firms severely affected by the pandemic. So right now, for example, in France, at least until the end of May, the government is covering around 80% of the salaries of employees who have to stay at home. Okay, but this is not for long. So the support will end by the end of May, and the next problem after is actually how the government is going to fund all of these expenditures. Okay, so that's why everyone is expecting a recession after. So the lockdown also have an impact on the world economy across some sectors. So certain sectors have nearly stopped operating, which is the case of the hotel and restaurant sector, tourism, and airline industries. So others are facing activity peaks, okay, which are the cases of the health sector, IT business, as well as other sectors catering to the most essential needs of people. Besides loss of activity, workers have to find new ways to work in collaboration with others. So the main topic today is actually about the impact of COVID-19 on education. So of course, this pandemic has some significant effects on education, on curriculum, and learning. So in the past, okay, when there is an economic downturn, we actually see an increase in enrollment, okay, because young people choose to study or acquire more years of education rather than to enter a problematic job market. So this has been established in past economic recessions, wherein research shows that college enrollment rates usually increase as unemployment grows. Okay, so the rationale is actually that an increase in unemployment reduces the opportunity costs of attending school. However, the current recession brought about by the pandemic is a little bit different. Okay, this may not result in higher college enrollment rates, or especially the potential of studying abroad. So why is this the case? So first, there's the uncertainty regarding when the schools will reopen, regarding a potential second wave of infections. Second, the pandemic is discouraging, especially overseas college university applications because of increased difficulty of obtaining visas and closed borders. And sometimes some students are reticent to pay for online courses. So let us just look a bit about statistics. Okay. So the UN actually reports that 90% of the world's student population are affected by COVID-19 school closures as some governments ramp up efforts to facilitate continuity of learning. So these figures were taken from ourworldindata.org, okay, which is a collaboration between University of Oxford and a nonprofit organization called Global Change Data Lab. So from no measures actually undertaken in January 2020 to almost all countries imposing school closures at all levels, except for some. So the exception would be like, let's say, in April 15, 2020, only Turkmenistan, Nicaragua, Taiwan, and Burundi haven't adopted any measures. So fast forward to 2 days ago, okay, some countries have already reopened their schools. Some have partially reopened, but uncertainty still remains. We are unsure whether schools could operate fully as before. I'm just going to discuss briefly about the adverse consequences of school closures. So, of course, there's some interrupted learning. Okay, so of course there have been interesting solutions such as distance learning using technological tools, and social media. But still, if we measure the number of days a student consecrates studying, it's less than the time they spend usually studying before the pandemic. Also, it's a source of confusion and stress for teachers. So teachers are often blindsided of how to maintain communications with students to support learning, especially those who are not comfortable using digital tools. So transitions actually to distance learning platforms can be especially messy and frustrating. Apart from that, parents are relatively unprepared for distance and homeschooling. There are also important challenges in creating, maintaining, and improving distance learning. There's some increased pressure on schools and school systems as demand for distance learning increases when schools close and often saturates servers to cater to remote education. There's some high economic costs because during the lockdown, some families don't earn as much, especially those who only get paid if they work. So this could some stress and productivity decreases to the whole family. So there's also a potential rise in dropout rates, social isolation, and as Professor Warcito said a while ago, there are challenges measuring and validating learning. Okay, so there have been strategies like, for example, in France, they are not going to administer like the bac as usual, the baccalaureate exam as usual. Okay, so now it's as a function of continuous assessment. Okay, so disruption to assessment results actually cause stress for students and can trigger also disengagement. So what's the most important challenge now for education systems is actually to enact immediate actions to ensure learning continuity, but which is underpinned by a medium and long-term sustainability oriented approach. So what do we mean by that? So while there is a tendency to rush toward the use of information and communication technologies, more consideration is needed around a qualitative approach. This is very important, especially if the objective is for students to be engaged, motivated, and supported to learn during this period. So here I'm going to talk about distance learning strategies. Okay, so almost overnight, because of course it was abrupt. The decision to have the lockdown was actually an abrupt decision for almost all countries. So we were left with perhaps just 2-3 days maximum in order to prepare for it. So parents, some teachers, some students have to ensure during this period that school education activities are not disrupted. Okay. So establishing or scaling up distance learning strategies have been the go-to response to this sudden interruption. So there are many important considerations in order to ensure that everyone are able to derive the benefits of distance learning. As Professor Rafaida said a while ago, one of this would be the principle of equity and inclusion. Okay, so these strategies need to ensure that the design and the delivery does not exacerbate existing educational and social inequalities. So beyond the response to the current crisis, efforts to deploy distance learning at a scale across all levels of education may lay foundation actually for longer term goals of building more open, inclusive, and flexible education systems after COVID-19 pandemic will pass. Okay. So this is just a small, a brief definition of distance learning strategies from UNESCO. I'm also going to share with you this presentation. Okay, so this distance learning strategies are actually a set of sector-wide measures taken by government agencies, partners to continue curriculum-based studies and regular educational activities when schools and other physical educational institutions are closed. So what are the most common issues of these distance learning strategies? First is how can students access remotely delivered content and communicative support? Second, how learners' rights and data privacy can be protected. Okay, this has been often overlooked. Okay, I'm going to discuss also a bit about that later on. Third, how teachers are supported in the transition. Technological resources can be mobilized to sustain the provision for several months. So the effectiveness of distance learning strategies is actually dependent on the levels of preparedness from various perspectives. We have technological readiness, which means that it refers actually to the level of readiness in both technological capacities of digital learning platforms or TV and broadcasting systems to provide courses remotely to all students. Preparedness in this area actually also means household access to electricity, telephones, televisions, digital devices, internet connectivity, and data. There's also content readiness. So it's not as simple as actually giving virtual classes of courses usually we give in traditional classroom settings. So for me, for example, I had to redo actually or restructure my presentations because my presentations before were more adapted to a classroom setting. So now I have to make my presentations a bit shorter because of course some students actually have different metacognitive abilities or attention span, especially with regard to screen-based learning. So studies actually indicate that for primary students, they have attention span of about 20 minutes. Okay, and for high school students, it's about 40 minutes. Okay, so of course we have to adopt to that one because the objective is to ensure that students remain engaged. Okay, and in order to maximize the use of distance learning. There's also pedagogical support readiness and monitoring and evaluation readiness. So in the context of online learning, it is actually critical to monitor differences in the level of participation and engagement of students who often have weak self-regulation and self-organization skills. Okay, so now I'm going to show you some stylized facts, especially with regard to technological readiness. So here during the lockdown, there has been an increase actually in downloads of different softwares, notably related to telemedicine, electronic signature, and web conferencing applications. So different learning management systems and collaboration platforms that were relatively less known before the lockdown had a meteoric rise of popularity, including what we're using right now, which is Zoom. I'm sure that not all of us actually know about Zoom before the lockdown. So here, this map that I'm sharing refers to the share of the population which have access to internet or which actually use internet. So in richer countries, of course, we observe that more than 2/3 of the population are typically online. And although usage rates are much lower in the developing countries, the statistics are actually increasing. So in Indonesia, for example, the share of the population using internet is only 32%. But of course, there are other channels which we're going to see now, for example, in the different figures. So although we see, for example, that fixed or broadband subscriptions to high-speed access is very low, Indonesia has one of the top 5 most mobile phone subscriptions in the world. Okay, with 1.73 mobile phone subscription per person. Okay, so it's important to note that mobile phones are important channels that actually can be tapped in order to improve remote education, especially one-way lectures. So these are other graphs. So social media platforms as a way to deliver information and perhaps one-way lectures such as Facebook, for example, and YouTube could also be tapped, as these two have around 2 billion users. So the increase in social media use over the last decade has, of course, come together with a large increase in the amount of time that people spend online. So in the US, adults spend more than 6 hours per day on digital media. Okay, so through the years, and I'm sure that this is the case in Indonesia and other emerging economies and less developed economies, the majority of time spent on media, on digital media, are through mobile phones. So all of this point out to the potential of tapping social media applications and mobile phones as channels to convey information and important media for distance learning to achieve its objectives. So let me draw some important lessons, which I think was also reiterated by Professor Rufaida a while ago. So there are of course more lessons than the 3, but I'd like to emphasize these 3 in order to convey an important message. So first is to prepare teachers for pedagogical shifts. So engaging teachers in the design of massive distance learning programs can lead to best possible integration of technology and pedagogical methodologies. So teachers should be supported on how to find solutions to common challenges, such as supporting learners overcome distance and disengagement, adjusting instructional design to motivate students and maintain engagement, and of course, developing and sharing teaching and learning resources and best teaching practices. The second is to support disadvantaged groups. So students with no access to household radio, TV, or connected digital devices, and those with disabilities are the most disadvantaged groups for distance learning programs. So there are, of course, trade-offs between offline and online content in terms of outreach and possibilities for interaction between teachers and students. So provisions of grants to low-income families, can support the most disadvantaged learners to have access to basic digital devices, and assistive tools can help students with disabilities. So the other one is to boost technological capacities of school, university, national distance learning platforms. So learning platforms managed by trusted organizations, let's say government, public agencies, universities, schools, are actually key components of distance learning strategies. So the services of platforms actually include supporting the delivery of lessons, hosting and managing learning materials. So when an online learning model is adopted, okay, it is important to avoid overloading and confusing students by actually asking them to download and register for too many applications or platforms. And with the use of distance learning platforms, it is equally important to review the data privacy regulations. So just several days ago, there's a new personal data security technical guide for online education platforms launched actually by the UNESCO Institute for Information Technologies in Education in partnership with the research team at Tsinghua University. The goal actually is to promote the rights to privacy of teachers and students of all ages and protection of their personal data. So this one I'd also like to emphasize because it's really often overlooked. Okay, so personal data privacy and protection is actually part of human rights. Okay, as declared in the Resolution 68167 adopted by the United Nations General Assembly. So it emphasizes that unlawful or arbitrary surveillance and or interception of communications, as well as unlawful or arbitrary collection of personal data as highly intrusive acts, violate the rights to privacy and to freedom of expression. So there are several security properties and measures of personal data that must be taken into account. There's some confidentiality, integrity, availability, authenticity, non-repudiation, and access control. So I advise you to read it in order to know your data privacy rights. So now let us look into several initiatives across the world, especially to improve equity and inclusion in distance learning strategies. So I'm going to cite 3 initiatives in different countries. I'm going to cite New Zealand, Lithuania, and South Africa. So here, for example, for New Zealand, there have been government efforts to make curricular courses accessible for students with disabilities and those whose primary language is not the language of instruction in schools, as well as making online resources available for parents. So here an excerpt from the official government website of New Zealand indicates that the government is funding 2 television channels to broadcast education-related content, one for English medium and one for Maori medium. So of course, we also see here efforts to increase student access to internet and devices. So for Lithuania, okay, there are measures to ensure all learners have access to courses being delivered remotely, including temporarily the centralization of digital devices from computer labs or leasing digital devices to students from low-income families. Okay, so the government actually is prepared to buy 5,000 and least 30,000 computers to ensure that all students have access to remote learning. So here they say that they're asking several businesses to lease consumer computers, and tablets, which could be also another possibility for other countries as well. So another one for South Africa, there are actually calls to negotiate with telecom sectors to offer zero-rate educational traffic to national learning platforms and online learning service systems, institutional repositories, and digital library. So more precisely, the steps actually include zero rating educational traffic, increasing bandwidth caps to certain consumers, and or even providing limited free lifeline data packages, particularly especially to students. Okay, so these are several measures, for example, that governments could tap. So like Professor Rafaida said a while ago, the use of TV, for example, could be an important channel, and let's say tapping or coordinating with broadcasting channels or systems, for example, can help, especially in communicating, especially to remote communities. So now I'm just going to briefly discuss a bit of experiences at Université de Limoges. So with particular focus on preparing teachers for pedagogical shifts. Okay, so days after the lockdown, so in France, the president announced the lockdown in March 12, and then the lockdown actually started March 17. So from March 16, we no longer have access to university. So there have been actually huge efforts by UL communities to adapt to the situation. So we have actually a department called UL Communities, which is in charge of the digital aspects of the university. So they created a page, Learning Continuity, which is designed actually to help teachers to conduct online teaching, particularly with the use of Moodle. So they told us during the first week actually that okay, during the first 2 weeks it will be just consecrated for teachers learning new ways to teach online. So the first 2 weeks were created mainly on that, and then after we proceeded with of course some online learning. So there was a decision tree, okay, proposed scenario. So first one was actually have my courses in digital format. So yes or no. If yes, there are several options: use Moodle, conduct virtual classes, or record classes. And then if no, can I convert them rapidly? So there were definitely different tutorials which were also scheduled during lockdown. So, of course, after getting a hand of the platform, we started conducting classes online. Um, I'd like to reiterate again that I have all my courses in digital format, but it's not sufficient to have it on that format. I had to restructure some of my classes. So, for example, I teach econometrics, which is application of statistical tools to test economic theories. So the first idea in my mind was to use COVID-19 data and analyze it with my students. That was for me, of course, it necessitates additional preparation, but at the same time, I'm sure, and I was sure actually, that it would elicit interest from my students. So one of the best practices also, or good practices that were adopted is the creation of a forum among teachers, including the IT team, regarding problems and difficulties we encountered. So there was the feeling that we were not left out. So we were on the same boat. So the phase course for evaluation, which is entirely a different aspect from teaching courses online. So it's an equally important topic to assess students. However, I don't have a lot of time to discuss about it, but I just also want to emphasize the importance of having an efficient IT team that has a very good pedagogical grasp. So this is my last slide. So where do we go from here? Okay, so I was listening to a webinar of UNESCO, and here are several interesting ideas and perspectives of where we'll go from here. Okay, so there's the use of data science to advance some digital learning. So in partnership with Cisco, they're actually developing a digital schools network project wherein game-based and team-based learning platforms will be constructed and made available even in remote communities. Okay, so it's a long-term project. Second, there's a promotion of virtual international mobility as a supplement to physical international mobility, because first, potential international students are actually affected by pandemic. Third, there's the push for blended learning. So I don't know if you have heard about this concept, but blended learning actually the combination of classroom learning and online learning. Okay, so this would probably be the new normal. And at the system level, the increased quality assurance of online teaching, and in order to provide good support for for blended and online learning, there's the consistent clamor for operationalization decisions related to learning science, the establishment of teaching or learning centers that will also provide them support to teaching staff. So that's the end of my presentation. I hope I was able to give you some insights regarding distance learning strategies. So thank you.
Thank you, Ruth, for the presentations. And before going to the Q&A sessions, I would like to remind all the participants to fill in the attendance list that is shared in Zoom group chat to get your certificate of participations. And now we already have several questions here from the large crowd. So I would like to read the first questions is coming from Eko Wahyu from UIN Antasari, and his questions is addressed to Professor Chandra. So Eko Wahyu is a lecturer of educations of physics, and is asking, when online learning a difficult teaching subject example, quantum of physics, electronica, and etc. How I teach during online learning and the new normal. Thank you. Please, Professor Chandra, any thought about this?
Sure. Hello, Paiko. I just read an article about how we can cope with the or how we can deliver such difficult subject during the challenge that we have right now. And one the thing that we can use is to provide the bite-size education modules. And what that means is you provide you try not to deliver the content in the whole or in bulk. You try to chop down, to divide the content into smaller pieces. Then we let them learn at their pace. And I remember about a story, an inspirational story from Shahid Khan. Shahid Khan is the founder of Khan Academy. And so what happened is he provided the basic basic fundamental classes in in basic stuff. I mean math, physics or chemistry, but he didn't try to deliver everything just in one shot. So what he did is he provided the fundamentals, and then he goes through each concept weekly. and during like a very short like period of time, and that helps the students to understand the concept better. If you try like to teach like quantum physics to like like your students, like it's, let's face it, I mean like it's really difficult like to do it like in the face-to-face setting, let alone in the online setting. Because if you do it like try to do it like in the online setting, you will lose your students very quickly, because once they lose you, even like momentarily, it's very difficult for them like to catch up. So all you need is to provide the again, the bite-sized, smaller pieces of the contents, and let them like go, through the contents at their own pace, so that we can kind of like pick it up where we left off and try like to summarize. And it's also important for you like to kind of create like smaller like learning groups. So you create like discussion, because the thing is, sometimes you don't know about like what you don't understand until you try like to deliver or like teach the concept to somebody else. And I think that's a method that I use like in my class a lot, especially in the derivatives class. It has a lot of like math involved, and it has like like some conceptual like stuff that's sometimes it's difficult for the students like to understand. But I kind of like put them like in a smaller group, smaller learning groups. I ask them like questions and try to I ask them, hey, why don't you try like to explain these like like smaller concepts to somebody else? And then if they can understand it, then the next step would be like for them like to explain it in their own language to somebody else. If that step is like is done, I believe that they understand the concepts even better. And if they say, oh, you know what, I don't know, I mean like I listen like to the lecture, but I kind of like somehow I got lost like in the process, and I don't know how to do it, then it's kind of like you're always like behind the 8 ball, because I mean it's hard. It's really hard. I mean like if you teach like like such difficult course like quantum physics, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. So I think the answer like to your question is put them like in a smaller size content, and then you post the contents online so they can kind of go through the content at their own pace. If they don't understand, they can come back and listen to it without having to go through like really long period of time. Because if you give them, let's say, a lecture for like 2 hours, right? And let's say that they got lost or they got confused during like, or like, let's say minute like 53, guess what? For them like to track and to find where they got lost, is finding like needle in the haystack. You can't find it. You can find it. So the only way that they can find it, if you put it like, let's say in the 5-minute like modules, 5-minute modules, they will know where like to locate the file. They can go back and try like to kind of pick up like, where they don't understand. So hopefully that answered like your question.
Thank you, Prof. Chandra, for the answers, and I hope it answers your question, Bapak Eko Wahyu. And for the second questions is addressed to Ruth. So Ruth, can learning in new normal conditions support or increase students' soft skills in Industrial Revolutions 4.0, like creativity, critical thinking, collaborations, and communications?
Yes, I think so. Because as much as possible with this pandemic and with this distance learning strategies, learners or students should be encouraged to play and to engage in learning activities. So they must be actually involved, especially in terms of the design of, let's say, courses. Because of course, different students have different capabilities. So the first question would be how to increase actually access for these students to remote learning. Another would be to strategize what would be the most efficient and appropriate method, okay, especially let's say to further team building skills. Let's say we can have team-based problem solving questions or issues that students can tackle all together, like in small groups, using, of course, some collaboration platforms. This also furthers their resilience, okay? Also in finding creative and innovative solutions that goes beyond what we already know. I'm sure that this pandemic is going to create opportunities, as what Professor Chandra said a while ago, especially for creative, innovative solutions from students. Yes.
Thank you for your answer, Ruth. And I hope it answers your questions. Ratna Kartikasari from UIN Antasari. And now third question is coming from Aya Akmulia from UNS. So it's addressed to probably all the speakers can answer this. So what are the soft skills that students need to have to adapt with this kind of uncertainty situations? Do you think that we as the students have been ready to face the new normal?
Maybe ladies first. So Ruth, you can go ahead.
Okay, so I think that the only comfort we have is that everyone is in the same boat. Okay, so actually it develops probably the capacity to overcome problems and difficulties, to see the silver lining, to be optimistic, because of course there are different personalities of people. There are people who are a bit more pessimistic, there are more optimistic people, and we cannot do anything about it. Okay, so it's the reality. However, I think that it's important to always look at the silver lining of different difficulties in life. So there's a saying, it's which say that it's important actually that we rise whenever we fall. Okay, so the important thing is to know how to overcome difficulties, and probably it's the most important soft skill that we can actually have or develop during the pandemic. And even after the pandemic, because it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity also for us to rethink of more creative solutions to improve delivery of courses. Okay, not only from a student's point of view, but also from a teacher's point of view. Because traditionally, of course, whenever we get our let's say our PhD, okay, so we are not immediately thought about how to teach very well. Okay, so now there's the challenge not only to teach well but also teach well in these conditions. Okay, so it's not only students who have to develop skills during these times, also actually teachers. So it's a challenge for everyone. Sorry. Okay, so Professor Chandra.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I back? Okay, cool. Yeah. Hey guys, just want to show you like a book that I read in the past, and this book is really, really awesome. I don't know how you can get the book, maybe like from the book fair, like in Jakarta, like the Big Bad Wolf, or like maybe like you can try like to find it online. But this is the book that I read. It's by Angela Duckworth, and the title of the book is Grit. Okay. And grit means like persistence, perseverance. I mean, like, determination. And she's like a professor at, I think, Wharton or like, Pennsylvania. I think that she's like at Wharton, but she's good. Yes, she is at Pennsylvania, and she has advised the White House, the World Bank, NBA, NFL, and Fortune 500 CEOs. So she's pretty like, not only is she good at like, theory, but she's also really excellent at the application. But anyway, what she's like, emphasizing here is that you have to have what it takes to succeed. And that is grit. That is like determination. You need to want it. I mean, like, you need like to have like the passion. Another example is like Kobe Bryant. I know that a lot of you like, play basketball and you love like Kobe Bryant. And do you know that Kobe Bryant is like, one of the most respected like player in the NBA? But to be honest, when you talk to a lot of scouts, they say that Kobe Bryant is not the most talented player in the history of the game. There are like, many players who were like more talented than Kobe Bryant, but they couldn't like, achieve the same level of success that Kobe Bryant is, or used to get. And the reason is because he was like so passionate about what he did, about playing basketball. He was like so eager, like to like, do whatever it takes for him like to be successful. And that is also like one thing that you can do and you can start developing. So that's why I have like to go back again to the value or to the virtue of character. Because if you are like, a person with integrity and also like, passion, you can do whatever you need to do and what you aspire to do. But if you just kind of like, try like to go through the motion, and there's a lot of like young people are like doing that. They just kind of like, oh yeah, I mean like, my family is wealthy. I mean like, I'm good. I don't need like to do anything, or like, I'm talented. Maybe you think that you're good. But the thing is, if you don't have grit, if you don't have passion, if you don't have the perseverance, because like difficult time will always happen. Like now, I mean, like, you see that, COVID-19 is just like an example. There will be like many other like, problems in the future. I can guarantee you that. But the thing is, the thing that can carry you through like, like difficult times are the passion. It's not your smart. It's not like your like your talent. It's not the or you just kind of like, I'm not going to be successful because I'm not talented. That is not true. So again, I mean, like, during the COVID-19, I want you like to start developing the grit in you, and you need like to start like, thinking about the future. I know that an example that like, Angela Duckworth like mentioned in her book is about like the West Point Academy. West Point is like, the sekolah militer, sekolah militer akademi angkatan darat di kota West Point, New York, right? Well, it's best of the best. I mean, like, if you graduate like from West Point, you will be a perwira. You will be like an officer. But the thing is, like the challenges, like it's so hard. Like the tests are brutal. It's grueling. It's just so difficult. And she found she met with a lot of like cadets at the West Point Academy, and she found that those who are successful are not necessarily those who are like the most talented. They are like the most, how do I say it? Like grit-filled person, people, or like cadets, candidates who are like, very gritty, who are like very like, passionate about what they do. And I just want to encourage you guys, like, adik-adik di Pradita Dirgantara, you know what? You can do a lot of things. You can do a lot of things. And sometimes like it's hard for us like to know our limits until or unless you try it. So again, I mean, like, I am a big believer in character. I think talents can only take you so far, but your character can take you anywhere. So hope it helps. And again, it's Grit by Angela Duckworth. I will put it like in the chat room. Okay, cool. Back to you, Safitri.
Yes, thank you, Ruth and Prof. Chandra, for the answers, and I hope it inspires you, Aya. And next, I would like to open the live questions, especially from students of Pradita Dirgantara. So please, if you would like to share your questions, share the live questions. So please click and raise hand to have a live questions. From our friends in Pradita Dirgantara, so probably you want to ask Professor Chandra or Ruth.
Oh, Mbak Safitri.
Yeah.
So guys, adik-adik, this is also like a great opportunity for you, right? To start developing your character. I mean, like, sometimes, like, in Indonesia, we don't like to ask questions, right? It's okay. It's okay. I used to be like that too. I didn't like to ask questions, but this is a great opportunity for you to start talking, speaking up. Because you know what? I mean, like, it's okay. If you make mistakes, so be it. Nobody's going to remember it, like, 10 years from now, from now. But if you are willing, like, to ask questions, even though that you are, let's say, diolok-olok ya sama teman-teman, it's okay. Nobody cares, right? You have to care about yourself. You need, like, to start asking questions and speak up. All right. So come on, guys, ask question.
Yeah, it's also a good opportunity for you to practice your English.
Oh, don't worry about the English. My English is messed up. Okay, so don't worry about it. If you don't want to ask me like in English, you can ask like Indonesian. You can ask me like in Indonesian, and I'll translate it to Dr. Ruth. All right. Oh, Dr. Ruth, do you, Professor Ruth, do you speak Indonesian?
No.
Yes.
No.
No.
It's okay. All right, guys, come on. You can do it.
Thank you very much, Ibu Safriti.
Okay.
You have already, you have already unmute my microphone. Let me introduce. Yang terhormat Ibu Nani, Ketua Umum Yayasan Ardhya Garini, Bapak Marskal Wajar Prasetyo beserta Ibu, Indonesian Education Advocacy, Profesor Jamal. Aduh, banyak sekali yang harus saya sebutkan. Honorable guest and participants via Ardhya Garini and Yayasan Ardhya Garini, teachers, lecturers, and my beloved students. Thank you very much for this opportunity. It is very nice occasion for me to see you all in this room, and I'm very happy. Thank you very much for inviting me, Yasarini. First of all, let me share ideas that we also have opportunities behind this outbreak before pandemic. We only know one or two virtual applications or platforms available, but then now they are grooming, like what Ruth said already just now. And I do agree with all the speakers, the notable speakers state this morning. A bit ideas and also might be questions to a notable speakers. Looking forward to hearing from you all, from our honorable speaker this morning. Why we have our students chat, like what actually Professor Chandra told, that email from the students sometimes not hints, and then why they are seems impolite, or sometimes they do not know how to behave. Don't you think? Yeah, don't you think that it is because the examples they see around them, including from us, right? Since we are around them, internet also covered them, and I think sooner or later we are also in the area of decoupling, and can also be opportunities come in a sudden between the situations, and so far as you guys here, teachers or lecturers, also recognized foresees, it is also needed to be blended with the networking. And what do you think about this? What should the teachers or lecturers, especially young teachers or lectures can also be make the students have their beautiful behavior. Most of it for the new era after this outbreak. Thank you very much, everyone.
See?
Okay,
She speaks like beautiful English. I mean, like,
yes.
Lucky. Yeah. Ruth, you can start if you want.
Okay. So I think that I agree actually to what you said, and I think that it is a generational problem. So I think that we are facing another generation of youth and students which had a lot of access to social media, which actually empowered them a lot. So there's a good thing to that, and there are also bad things that actually resulted to that one. However, for your question regarding cheating, I think that it's important to discuss about it, especially when using distance learning strategies. So for me, for example, I just gave my exams last week. Okay, so I have oral exam. Okay, I have an oral exam. I gave oral exams to students, which actually minimizes cheating. Okay, because I actually have to ask a question face to face, so there is actually no time for student or any occasion for the student to cheat. So another possibility for exams which are written based, which I also gave, was actually to ask them questions that about it's more opinion based, for example. So for example, me, I teach also economics of banking. So in terms of asking, for example, these types of questions, it develops actually the capacity of students to give their opinions on certain issues. But of course, there are limitations on that, especially when we talk about certain subjects, wherein it's actually hard to design, for example, questions that will minimize cheating. The other one, another possibility or another idea that I have actually, but which is costly, is to have because I think that there are some softwares that allow online surveillance of students during exams. But I think that it's a costly option. So those are just my insights regarding your question, Professor Kantra.
Okay, well, I don't want to be a parrot and just like, echo like, what Professor Ruth is explaining, but I'm going to take like, a contrarian, like, position. Here, I respectfully disagree with her. I mean, I'm not really disagree. It's just like I look at the same problem from a different angle. So not necessarily disagree. So here's how I'm trying to explain to you, to everyone here. The thing is, it's easy for me. I mean, like, I have taught at my current institution for 13 years. Oh, yeah, 13 years. Yes. And then before, like, teaching at this place, I taught as a PhD student and a master student, like, for another like 7 years. But the thing is, what I learned before, I was like so strict about like things. I got like irritated when I got upset, angry when like my students, quote unquote, imply or misbehave, right? It really bothers me a lot. It bothers me a lot to, man, I still remember like one day I was like teaching like a summer class, and I had like a student And he was so disruptive. He didn't pay attention. And then, like, suddenly he was like, he fell asleep and started sleeping in my class. And I said, dude, I mean, like, I am not asking you like to come to class. There's not even like, an attendance grade. So you don't have to be here. If you don't want to be here, then don't be here. Okay. But later on, I mean, like, as I get older, I just realized that sometimes it's easy for us to blame other people. And one day I start saying to myself, hey, how about if I change myself? I mean, like, I may need like to put myself in their, or like the student's shoes and see like, what I think about it, right? And it is so interesting because I'm going to show you like a picture here. I have a student and his name is Alex, right? Okay, you can see like from the picture that we were smiling. But do you know, before, when I had him like in my class, he was a troublemaker, okay? He was a troublemaker and he didn't do really good. In the past, when I started like, first started like teaching, I don't like, I don't want to use that word, but I mean, like, I only like smart students. Let's put it that way, okay? I only like smart students. So when he didn't perform well in my class, I wasn't really happy about it because I always think that, hey, you know what? If you want, you can do it. If you want to be better, you can do it. So if you are not good, that means that you are lazy. That's my assumption. One day, I just asked Alex, I need like to talk to you outside the classroom. And he said, okay. And I started like asking him, it's like, hey, can you tell me more about your family? And he's like from Chicago. He's from like Chicago area. And he is not, he's coming like from a broken family. Let's put it that way. All right. I don't have to share with you like the details. But he was like, broken. And the more I learn about Alex, the more I just kind of like, wow. I mean, it's very unfair for me like to say that he is a bad person. Well, he is not so good student, but I always assume that he was a bad person. And then I said, hey, Alex, how about if, we chat? Because I really think, Alex, I don't know why, but I really think that, you are smart, but you haven't done the best you can. I really think so. And he was like, he was surprised when I said that. He was like, what? I said, yeah, you are good. You are good, but you just don't know it. Long story short, and I am not lying, I'm not joking here. At that time, when I was talking to him, he was failing. I gave like my students like, 4 like midterm exams and 1 final exam. And he was about like to take the last midterm exam. So basically he only had like 2 more exams. And I said, Alex, you are failing in my class and I'm not gonna let you pass from my class if you don't do something about it. And I know that you can do it. I know that you are smart. And you know what? I believe in you. And when I started saying that, when I said that, his eyes started getting wet. He was a big dude. He was like, well, maybe he is still, I mean, like he's a football player, by the way. He is like 6'3". So 192 cm lah, hampir 2 meter dia. Really big, really big. I said like, Alex, I know you can do it. I believe in you. And he started like crying. And I was like, what's happening, Alex? I mean, like, And then you know what? like the next exam, can you guess, guys, what's happening? He got like the second highest grade in the whole class. The second one. And he sent me an email. I still keep like, I still kept like his email. He said, I had nobody ever told me in my family that I am good. Nobody in my family, even my parents, they never said good things about me. They never said like good words about me. Oh, wow. I mean, like, so when that happened, I just realized that at the end of the day, education is all about interacting with human being. We are not like interacting with a subject. I'm sorry, we are not interacting with an object. So if somebody is struggling, maybe there's something that we don't know about that person. I'm like, so what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that I am good. No, that's not my point. My point is, I was guilty. I was guilty of making assumptions even before I knew everything about that person. I thought about that person is lazy. I thought that person is bad. I thought that person didn't want to do like, the best he or she could, like, to better him or herself. But the thing is, it's really important not just to make assumption that somebody is misbehaving. Because if we were in the same situation, in their shoes, we may be assumed as someone who's lazy. So that's one, like, very important lesson for me personally, as a teacher. So teaching is not about providing like, education content. It's about touching heart and changing life. If you can do it, you don't have to be like, try to pretend that you care, but just care about that person. Because I mean, like, if like, with Alex, now we become like good friends. I even like took him like, to a Thai restaurant, like, the other day. But the thing is, it's amazing. It's amazing. Like being a professor for me is like, a privilege, is an honor, because we have a very powerful platform, like to change somebody's life. I still remember like all my teachers, like from the elementary school, from the middle school, from the high school, from the college, from grad school. I still remember all of them. I still remember those who are really mean, who are rude, who are like just careless, right? But I also remember like those people who took some time to take me under their wings and mentor me. So I hope, Ibu Luki, you are like, please give your not so good students, quote unquote, a second chance. Get to know them better, because you may get surprised that, they may be a diamond in the rough. Maybe, but we never know. Sorry. I got carried away, but that's a true story. And now, and myself now, I don't feel like upset anymore. If somebody like cheated in my class, now I just ask like my GA like to proctor the exam, and I say, you know what? I don't care. If you cheat, then it's you cheating yourself, and I don't care about it. Because why should I care about like your future if you're not concerned about yours? We cannot change somebody, that person. If you're like in teaching in high school, Buluki, that means like, that person has had a habit for 17, 16 years. It's almost impossible for us like to change that person. But the thing we can do is to love them and to accept them. Sorry, hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Ruth and Prof. Chandra, for a very inspiring experience. And I hope, Bu Luki, you inspired by those experience. And before closing this webinar, I have one more question from Firendi Enrique, and he's a student of SMA Pradita Dirgantara. So these questions is addressed to Prof. Chandra. So he mentioned, I've joined some competitions by online platform. According to your opinion, what is the possibilities about the competitions and also education in the future, such as less interaction or change by robot? Thank you.
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
The question is, what is the possibilities about competitions and also education in the future, such as is going to be less interactions or changed by robot? Because Firendi Enrique, he has joined some competition by online platform.
Okay, that's a good question. And I think, again, ladies first, so I can give the time to Professor Ruth. Please, go ahead.
I have actually less insights about this question, so I give I give first the floor to Professor Chandra.
Yeah, I mean, like, to be honest with you guys, I am not really super experienced in this, right? But my understanding is that people talk a lot about, like, Industry 4.0, even like, the industry, like, 5.0. But I think that's not really like our concern right now, because the thing is, if we talk about like the cognitive ability, like, like the computational like ability, like, stuff that requires like a lot of like, like brain processing power, we will always lose to computer and robots, right? When we talk about like, data science, talk about the artificial intelligence, machine learning, is very difficult like to compete. But the thing is, again, like, I want to go back like to the stuff that I mentioned in the in my presentation. If we don't start developing the social skills and the soft skills and the character that are really sorely needed, especially with the changing time, we're gonna lose. We're gonna lose, and our job, no matter like what you do, you can do a lot of things. You can learn like new, or like you can take like many online classes. You will be replaced. But the one thing that robot or like, machine, computer cannot do is the human specific related like skills, like, empathy, like what I just explained, my experience with Alex. Computer doesn't have empathy. Like, machine learning doesn't have empathy. They don't understand the concept. But the thing is, if you ask a robot, hey, robot, I want this guy who is failing like, 3 exams or 4 exams, I want that person like to get like the second highest score in the class. I'm not sure if he can, the robot can do it. But I'm not saying that I am good. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that if we have like the empathy, if we have the human specific related skills, we can do wonders, things that cannot be done by computer or robot or machine. So I really think for like I'm sorry, what's the name of the person who asked the question?
Firendi.
Yeah, Mas Firendi. Yeah, Mas Firendi. So I really think that you start like, you need like to start developing yourself as a person. I mean, like, it's good like to know like, a lot of skills, it's good. But you should not rely on that, because at the end of the day, it will be replaced. Because right now with the industry, like the revolution, like, the industry like revolution in the US, a lot of people like, had like a manufacturing, like, processing plant and stuff like that. They got replaced easily. Like, like the Ford, like, or General Motors, like, plant workers, they got replaced by robots. Like people who are working like at Amazon, they are being replaced by robot. But the thing is, you need like to start developing your soft skills. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Chandra, for the answer, and I hope it answers your question, Firendi. So that was the last questions for today's webinar. To sum up a bit of our discussions today, so there might be a challenge in education in this new normal, but the most important point to do is how we can maximize students' interest and ability, and also how students can actually still socially active in the community. All right, very great. Thank you for all the distinguished speakers for sharing your insights and thoughtfulness today. For all the participants, you can watch today's webinar recording in UNS official YouTube account. We hope you get some valuable knowledge, and we do hope that you always stay healthy. Thank you for participating in today's webinar. We hope to see you again next time. Happy holiday and happy.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
2018. Dia lagi Radita. Profil.
Kita host nih. Kita host.
So this is the video profile of SMA Pradita Dirgantara. Please enjoy.
Bisa di-share, Mbak Savitri?
Ya, Bapak, sebentar. It's a technical thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nggak tak ulangi ya.
Suaranya bisa dinyalain, Mbak Savitri?
Ya, Pak, ini sedang dicoba untuk share suara.
Okay.
Ya. Mohon maaf, Bapak Ibu sekalian, karena video yang di-share tidak ada suaranya, jadi mohon dapat cek video profile SMA Pradita Dirgantara di official YouTube account-nya SMA Pradita Dirgantara. Mohon maaf sekali. Kami akan share linknya di grup chat, Zoom grup chat. Terima kasih atas partisipasinya pada siang hari ini. Sampai jumpa lagi pada webinar selanjutnya.
Nah, mana? Terima kasih atas penyelenggaraan ini dari UNS dan juga para pembicara-pembicara seluruh Indonesia seluruh dunia dari Amerika, Prancis. Saya haturkan terima kasih terhingga Bu Popi, Bu Pak siapa tadi, Bu Ruth, lalu siapa lagi? Dari Prancis. Halo.
Halo.
Ya.
Ya.
Profesor Warsito dari Prancis, adik Bu Paris.
Warsito dari Prancis, Bu Ruth dari Paris. Pak Warsito, bagaimana kabarnya Pak Warsito? Sehat Pak Warsito.
Très bien.
Merci.
Yang matang sih.
Iya Pak, jadi bisa berganu. Itu Bu Ruth ini dari Prancis ya juga ya?
Iya.
Oh, parle français.
Oui.
Yang itu Pak Sutanto, itu ada Pak Sutanto yang bisa parle français.
Oui.
C'est moi pour le marsang, no pour
Oui, c'est ça. Oui.
Luar biasa Ibu Nani, luar biasa bahasa Prancisnya.
Saya oublié beaucoup. Ada Pak Tanto, saya jadi malu kalau ngomong berbahasa Prancis. Saya ada Pak Tanto.
Cucunya diajak ngomong bahasa Prancis juga tuh Bu.
Sebentar lagi berangkat sana. Sebentar lagi berangkat ke Prancis, mau ketemu Pak Warsito di sana.
Ya, siap. Rencananya tahun lalu tapi kayaknya nggak jadi ya Bu.
Iya tahun ini rencana tapi karena pandemik jadi nggak berangkat. supaya begitu masuk SD sudah menyesuaikan kelasnya.
Betul.
Pak Chandra ya yang di tim Indonesia.
Iya.
Pak Waskito, bagaimana dengan Perancis, kita kerjasama apa yang bisa untuk Pradita?
Jadi di sini sudah ada beberapa sekolah Bu sebenarnya sudah siap. Cuman memang ketika di level sekolah menengah memang ada beberapa permintaan memang minimal selain bahasa Inggris memang meminta bahasa Perancis. Jadi karena memang kita inginnya langsung sharing antar siswa itu semua saya jajaki dan sangat welcome, sangat tetapi karena siswa di sini untuk interaksi masih tetap memerlukan bahasa Perancis. Nah, itu Tapi secara kelembagaan siap untuk makanya yang terbaik adalah mohon Pak Kepala Sekolahnya untuk coba menjajaki sekolah mana yang di sini yang pas, terus kemudian kami yang akan mendorong. Jadi karena Pak Kepala Sekolah tentu yang lebih tahu apa sasaran kerjasamanya.
Mungkin paling sementara budaya dulu kali ya, Prof ya.
Siap.
Sementara ini karena kan link dengan kurikulum kita masih menjajakan.
Betul.
Harap sih memang kolaborasi pendidikan seperti yang Pak Profesor Harry yang dari Amerika itu menyampaikan gimana caranya supaya kita ada belajar bersama lewat Zoom atau lewat apa, jadi tutornya di sana, dosennya di sana atau gurunya di sana, terus muridnya di sini bisa menyesuaikan. Bila beliaunya di sana siang, kita malam, no problem kan kita boarding school gitu.
Ya, siap. Ya. Silahkan Bu, nanti silahkan kita support apa yang mungkin diperlukan, kita akan.
Merci beaucoup, Professeur Warsito.
Oh oui.
On parle japonais ou on parle français?
Comme tu veux. Iya, kemarin memang kami sudah mendapat kabar Bu Nani dan Bapak mau ke Paris. Kapan itu ya?
Tahun lalu. Tapi yang keadaan mau pemilu jadi nggak jadi.
Betul.
Karena kebetulan dapat undangan dari Pak Panglima sana untuk menjadi